everybody, welcome to Startup Kitchen Talk, where we discuss startup apprentices becoming master chefs. This episode is special. We're shooting in Taiwan, currently sitting in a startup office. I'm not sure what they do, but just on the way to the restroom, I've seen a running turtle on the floor and people smelling expensive sneakers. So this is the kind of startup that I'm sitting in, and I'm here with the venture builder with startup experiences from the USA and Asia, ex-Rocket Internet, now founder at Aedge Ventures and managing partner at BlackStorm Consulting. Harvey Ma, welcome to the Startup Kitchen Talk.
Thank you, Kate. Great to be here and great to talk to you guys.
Thank you for being here. What's up with the turtle? Is that like a pet?
Yes,
Yeah?
it's the startup's pet. The startup sells, it's called Area O2. They sell sneakers. It's a sneaker marketplace, starting in Taiwan, but going to the rest of Asia. But yeah, the turtle is here in an aquarium, and they let it out during the day just to kind of roam around. And but yeah, so you kind of got to make sure you don't step on it.
Yeah, careful. That would be a horrible start of a podcast. When we first met, I think a week and some days ago, you introduced yourself as an American Taiwanese.
Yes.
Is that Taiwanese living in United States or American living in Taiwan?
Well, it can be both. I think American Taiwanese, what we identify is sort of two nationalities. Most of us are born in Taiwan. We're Taiwanese originally. We speak Mandarin Chinese. And at some point, this is different for everybody, but we immigrated with our families to the States, usually when we're younger. And then a lot of us, once we're out of college, depending on the number of years we've worked, and then we eventually come back to Asia or Taiwan. And so actually, it's funny, I have a lot of my high school friends here in Taiwan.
So it's a common story.
It's a very common story. And also, it's got to do with waves of people that went during that time. Yeah, in the 1980s.
1980s. And what brought you back? Was there some initiative, or was it just homesickness?
No, it was, I think, I want to say it's a little bit of boredom, gotta say.
Okay.
Yeah, because I grew up in Los Angeles, and life is nice over there. You got the beaches, you got everybody, and it's very diverse. But life is life, and I like travel. I've taken my travels, throughout Asia, different countries, Europe as well. And I remember back in 2007, that's China was on the rise. Right? 2007, I took a trip. Before that, I've been taking trips to Taiwan, but not really China. And actually, my father is from China. He was born in China, but all his siblings after him were born in Taiwan. That's another story. That's the China story. Maybe we'll talk about later. But yeah, 2007, took a trip to China and just saw how everything is. And saw that, hey, next year, 2008, the Beijing Olympics. And so China is kind of going to the world stage, And just being on the ground and seeing how it is, it was kind of exciting. It's kind of like the Wild Wild West, And so when you're in a place where it's comfortable, it's complacent, you see sort of an exciting place. It's kind of like Wild Wild West. And me, I was with PwC that time doing mergers and acquisitions consulting. And so you see a lot of business opportunities when you're sort of in the earlier stages. But right, when you're in a mature market like US, it's fairly mature, right? And my focus was in tech and startups. So just in China at that time, that was quite exciting. A lot of stuff hasn't been built yet. They haven't completely trying to copy US internet models yet, but they were starting to. Yeah.
And is your nationality, like the place that you were born, is that like specially important for you? To come back home and bring your experiences home, or was it more like, opportunistic thing? I gained some knowledge and I really know how to now, fill those market gaps.
Yes, this the latter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's filling the market gaps. it's taking what we know from the U.S., right, the more mature market, and coming to China. But I want to say the other side is also a sense of adventure. You know, just like I said, you know, the wild, wild west. Just being there. Sometimes there's not that many rules, right? And you know, just.
And is it still a wild, wild west, or is it more like, you know, golden age?
Actually, you're talking about China right now.
Yeah.
Oh boy, it's gone. It's not the wild, wild west anymore. You know, the price and the cost of living has gone up a lot. Definitely, it's matured, and I think these days, right now, China is kind of potentially in trouble. Actually, the market. So yeah, there's some bubbles over there. For example, real estate.
Real estate, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
now a big topic.
And what's happened over the years is that, you know, unfortunately, when I went in 2008, 2007, there was a lot of foreigners. There was people from everywhere. I had a lot of friends from Europe. You know, I have friends from all over Asia as well. You know, Singaporean friends, and it was a great time. And everywhere you went, especially sort of in downtown Shanghai, which is where I moved to, there was a lot of foreigners. And but nowadays, actually, if you go to Shanghai downtown, they're mostly gone. Maybe there's some English teachers left, but they're not really out and roaming around and, you know, having brunch and drinking a beer, you know, in the courtyard.
And what happened? What happened? Why did the foreigners left? Was it their idea to leave?
Yeah, it was the Chinese government. Chinese government. I think this was around 2011 or 12.
Okay.
When I left China to come to Taiwan. So this was around a decade ago, and I think the Chinese government becoming more nationalistic. It was more like, hey, it's all about China. We have so many foreigners and stuff. They're making our money, you know, and you know, we want to help our own people. We want to help our own brands, right? So, you know, take for example, I worked at PwC in China, M&A Consulting, and you have partners, right? But we had a lot of foreigner partners as well, you know, throughout the firm in different types of consulting practices. And I think it was around 2012, 13, and the government mandated that, you know, you kind of want to decrease the number of foreigners in terms of at the high levels of the firm. And this is not just consulting firms, but it was all throughout China.
And doesn't that like
Eventually.
destroy the innovative potential when you always has this threat that the government will step in and tell you to leave? Doesn't it like affect how innovative the state can be in the future?
Oh yeah. And I think, you know, if you don't have that freedom to continue and to create, to innovate, and, you know, someone like the government can just step in, you know, and that's quite dangerous. So that's why I think China is a pretty different market to get into. It's huge market, huge potential, but, you know, you really got to have some really good connections to get into that market.
We will get to that.
Right, we'll get to that.
But tell me, how does it affect, for example, the starting crisis that you mentioned that is happening now in China? How does that affect Taiwan? Like, because I know that the situation is very complex, and we kind of need to dance around that. But still, like, does it mean that there is for sure going to be crisis in Taiwan? Is it like 100% sure, or is it like their market is their market, our market is our market?
You're talking about the China's threat to Taiwan, right? And yeah, I mean, you know, of course,
crisis-wise,
everybody's heard, you know, they're flying planes all over Taiwan, very often. I do want to say, us being on the ground in Taiwan, I think most Taiwanese don't care as much. But compared to, you know, years before, where it was status quo, where we kind of just maintained that relationship, it's a little bit more dangerous now. I mean, there's the potential is a little bit higher, but I want to say that most of the everyday citizens, you know, aren't really paying super attention to that. I think they feel okay. Most of us probably feel like they're not going to attack right away. It might happen, although people are talking about, will it be, you know, 5 years or 10 years? Of course, there are the extremists that are saying, hey, it's going to be next year or, whatnot.
And does this threat help to build, the Taiwanese startup ecosystem? Because sometimes the outside threat, for example, it might still be the case of Israel. Now it's a different horrible situation.
Yeah.
But they always said that their startups' achievements are very highly connected to the outside threat that they're feeling. Do you think that this is applicable to Taiwan as well?
At least from my observation, not as much. The impact of China threat in relation to the Taiwanese startup ecosystem, I don't think there's too much impact. Yeah, I think the Taiwanese government is just pushing along the startup ecosystem according to their plan. Although I guess there's a little bit of impact because they're pushing Taiwanese companies, including startups, with a southbound policy, meaning Southeast Asia policy. So basically, they're telling companies and startups, "Hey, don't go to China. There's some risk there, right? Don't rely on them. Don't set up your factories there. Go to Southeast Asia instead."
But they're pushing advanced technologies as well, like semiconductors, etc.
Yeah.
So now you advise to startups when they're scaling to new region. What do you think is the biggest misconception when scaling to the APAC region?
Biggest misconception? Ooh, well, that's a good question. Can I change the answer a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
I wouldn't say there's one big misconception. I want to talk about the topic of localization. I think it's a little bit related to that, drawing on some of my startup experiences building startups in the region. I say localizations because I guess you have, let's say, US startups or European startups, Western startups that want to get into Asia. And one common mistake is not enough localization. And part of that could be, for example, sending an American over here instead of trying to find a local, maybe Taiwanese American, or even a local that can speak English fairly well, that maybe have studied in the US. Then you have a better link. And the localization part is that when you're launching to a different region, you need to understand the business practices there. Right? You need to understand the customs of doing business, right? And actually, even within Asia, you're talking about Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, every country has different business gift-giving customs. I forget which country, but I think one of the Southeast Asian countries, if you give it a gift, it's actually not good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have to check my notes, but it's things like that, little details like that.
Little details.
Like shaking hands or not, or what do you say? For example, in Japan, right, to do business there, you really need a local Japanese as the face of your company there. You cannot just send a foreigner as like the country head of Japan. Actually, it's very difficult to do business. Japan is a little more closed. They kind of trust their own. I think Korea is kind of like that. Yeah. So it's localization is really understanding, every country's culture and how do you do business there.
Did you ever cause any faux pas, like shaking hands when you wasn't supposed to be, or bringing the wrong gift? Or, in Japan, they told us when we have business meetings to bring a very well packaged gift. Not that important of the contain, but the packaging needs to be top notch. So did ever happen any faux pas to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's an obvious one. Actually, this still happens in Taiwan. It still happens to me. I mean, at least from the American culture, for business meetings, we all shake hands, right? And we talk very direct. In Taiwan, no, you don't really shake hands, by the way. In Taiwan, people just say hi, you kind of just wave, or, you know, sometimes you can shake hands, but it's not like sort of required, you know. You know, same thing with personal relationships as well. You know, friends, you know, people don't, unless you're super close here, people don't really hug.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed that.
Or
Here,
yeah, undo the cheek kiss. They don't really do that,
yeah. And so, yeah, right. So these are sort of regional customs that you have to understand. You want to scale a business, you know, in a different country. And of course, you know, you're talking about the business tactics, marketing, and, you know, all these different areas. You know, every country is different. So I think localization is very key.
And what should be the first steps? Like, I'm a startup, Europe or American base, and I want to scale to APAC region. So what should I do before I think of localization? Because that's difficult. Finding the right partner is difficult.
That's right.
You can't do that on LinkedIn, right? Because it's very, like, people use social media in a different way. So what should be the first step? What do you think?
Okay, that's very easy, actually. So both of my companies, Aedge Ventures and BlackStorm Consulting, we cover, you know, between Taiwan and Southeast Asia. And so for companies that want to come to Asia, what I recommend is really study the market first. You have to, so this is kind of like desktop, you know, research, right? You literally internet, right? So, you know, if you're sitting in Europe and you say, all right, I have this business and I want to go to Asia, but gosh, there's so many countries. Where do I go, right? I mean, obviously every business is different. So I think you have to really figure out which countries should I target. You got to do some research first. And what we do is usually we do provide very in-depth analysis and of different markets and countries. So for example, okay, so this company we're in right now, startup, Area 02, great example. We are going to Southeast Asia. So we did a whole report analysis for Area 02. What we did is they kind of knew which of the Southeast Asian countries have sneakerheads, have the potential sneaker market. They named a few. So we threw that on the list. But we also threw some other ones which they didn't know. And they were like, all right, maybe I want to know more about Philippines, if there was a market for sneakers. And so we have a list of countries, and then we do a deeper dive of research, you know, figuring out, you know, obviously the basis is like population, right? Also age, right?
Yeah, income.
Sneakerheads are, you know, which age, right?
Yeah,
which age group? Of course, it tends to be younger, right? So if you have a really old population, kind of like maybe Japan, so you have to see like, hey, is this suitable? But then if you research quickly online, oh shit, Japan, there's a huge group of sneakerheads.
Yeah, and money income, right? Because it's money. Very like big.
Exactly.
You cannot really be
average income,
you know, a poor sneakerhead.
Yeah, but funny thing is, in I think it was Indonesia, Philippines, you know, the average income isn't very high.
Yeah, but there are there's
that extreme wealthy group that actually plunk down a lot of money in these shoes, you know, in very expensive limited edition shoes.
And how do you find them out? Like, how does that? Is there a really, you know, quite rich young group of sneakerheads in that country or in that region? How do you find that? Like, do you use social media or how do you analyze that?
It's everything. It's honestly, it is looking at everything. It's looking at social media. It's looking at reports, articles out there. But in addition, this is where you kind of need the localized help. You need someone from that country that actually knows what's going on and knows the language, right? And knows where to search, right? We can do desktop research from Europe or US, you know, but if you don't understand language and all that, all you're searching is English, right? You need someone on the ground or someone who knows that market or from there at least. I think that's the basics, right? And then you need to search all the information. But of course, some of that research involves interviews, reaching out to people in the market, in the industry, and then finding out, okay, what's it like here? You know, where are the sneakerheads? You know, so I want to step back a little bit. Also, there's other things you want to look at is internet penetration rate, right? So if obviously we're talking about tech business. You know, it's that, right? But internet penetration is also desktop versus mobile. And one interesting statistic for Southeast Asia is that a lot of these emerging countries, they skip the desktop because they were poor. And there's a little bit China. China's like this too, by the way. They were poor, so I mean the average population, right? So they couldn't afford a nice desktop or a laptop. They just went straight to Android device, which is more affordable, right? And they were just going online from that. So you skip that. So some of these countries have a higher mobile internet penetration rate. So if you're talking about e-commerce or buying online, they're straight from mobile. Then you have to cater your business to that. That's how you have to localize.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Then when you see European or American startup, like what should be their APAC entry point? Do you think Taiwan is a good place to do that? Like a first place of landing?
I think Taiwan could be a first or a complementary place. So Taiwan is good for supply chain, hardware mainly. But in terms of software capability, it's definitely up and coming. There's big companies, Microsoft and stuff, they're setting up R&D centers here as well. Taiwan's great because the average salary isn't super high like Japan, right, or Singapore. But it's not like super low like some of the Southeast Asian countries. It's sort of in the middle. And in terms of talent quality, it's pretty good. Obviously we have TSMC here, huge semiconductor. So that's why supply chain, hardware engineers. Sneakers, yes. That's an interesting point, by the way, because not everyone knows. I don't know if you guys know, but Taiwan has a couple of sneaker manufacturing companies that comprise of 1/3 of the sneaker manufacturing in the world. So in the old days, Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, back several decades ago, he came to Taiwan to get some of the shoes made. I mean, some of the early Air Jordan shoes.
Yeah, there was a time where almost every T-shirt and a lot of the stuff that we were from Taiwan, and now it's shifting to more like advanced tech, like semiconductors, and the advanced are almost like 90% of them are made in Taiwan, which is pretty remarkable. And it's maybe creating the shield that we mentioned. We already tackled the mainland China complexity, and how do you think that? Is that market in this situation still penetratable for US or Europe startup, or do you think would you advise to them forget mainland China, that's too much?
Yeah, I mean I think honestly right now it's not a good time to go into China unless you have a good local partner. But the thing about China is that you're likely not be able to hold 100% of the business there. So you would have to find a local, say, joint venture partner or something that would own half the business, and preferably let them run that business over there. Then that strategy I think is better for now, because right now China is kind of going closed, right? They want to support their own. So if you're a foreign company trying to get in the China market, that's kind of tough. But obviously it depends on the type of business. Certain businesses, maybe China is still good.
Yeah, that's what I meant to ask. Is there something still missing? Do you think that there's some product or some vertical that they would still accept in their market?
Yeah, of course. I think the easy ones that come to mind is sort of like our daily consumable products. We're talking about like baby milk powder. Of course. Everybody likes, let's say, European or American brands, or Australian as well. Right? There's some really good premium brands. We're talking about organic. We're talking about just health and safety type of stuff. Lotion, things like that. I think Western brands actually have a higher, branding premium in China. Yeah.
So almost not not like that, techie stuff, but the kids related or
Kids related
drug
or
related.
yeah. Like
How much does
clothing as well.
Yeah, clothing.
I think clothing. Yeah.
Oh, really? In
Yeah,
China?
clothing. I mean, I think European brands, obviously luxury brands, because brands are different, right?
Yeah,
Brands
because
have
it's like a
that
status
appeal.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. There's a bit of status. So, there's not that many high fashion or high luxury China brands yet.
Interesting.
They're mostly more of like a fast fashion. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like
the
a
lower end.
both way stream. How do you think? Because the APAC region is very complex. We kind of already discussed Taiwan, China. The Japan and Korea is also quite difficult. How much do you think that a startup needs to get deep into that and understand the thin ice that person is dancing on, or should he or she just leave it to the local partner to deal with all that, or should that person learn some history about it?
China?
No, this is because
APAC.
China, Taiwan,
Yeah.
difficult. Korea,
Yeah.
Japan, difficult.
Yeah.
Philippines, Japan, Indonesia, difficult. So I mean, how much does that person needs to understand that?
Oh, of the relations
Yes.
between different. Oh, yeah, definitely. I think that is key. That is part of the localization as well. Just understanding sort of the regional sort of geopolitics, what's going on between the different countries.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you need to navigate between different countries, right, you don't want to come to Taiwan and talk, maybe depending on who you're talking to Taiwan and talking great things about China, right? Mm-hmm. You might offend some people, right? That's some of the things that you got to be sensitive about.
Yeah, and we've even met some businesses who said, okay, so we can have head of our operation, but only for this 3 countries. Then we have a special head of operation for China. Then we have special operation for this region. And it's not just about the logistics. It's more about the politics and history.
Right. That's right. Like Japan, you definitely need a local person.
Yeah.
China, you definitely need a local person. So for example, if you're in China, talking about the Japanese market, you got to be careful, right? Especially for a Japanese startup. If they're going to China, they got to be super careful to navigate because there's some bad history between China and Japan.
It's pretty difficult to navigate.
Right, and there's pockets of people in China that's really against the Japanese. And there's some tension with the Koreans as well, right?
Yeah, historical grudges are difficult to navigate in the startup world. What do you think is the role of VC? Can that be a really good partner when you want to scale to find a local VC? Do they tend to be hands-on here?
We're talking about Taiwan, Asia, China.
Yeah, I meant
it's different,
APAC.
by the way. That's why.
Yeah, you just mentioned.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah, let's talk Taiwan.
Let's talk Taiwan. Yeah. Okay. I think having obviously, if you want to come to Asia, finding a VC or investor in Asia to help you on the ground is worth it. I think that's good. But you definitely have to find the right VC that believes in your business model, that also wants to invest in your, say, European or American or wherever market as well, because they won't just be investing in the Asia market. But yeah, with that said, local VCs do have those resources that can definitely help you pave the way or just make an introduction. That's always really great. That's another strategy.
Because there's this stereotype we hear how to get ready for meeting a VC and in Asia, like that the European and American VC, you should send a business person, somebody who can sell things, who they receive tech as a magic box, and they're not really interested in the tech itself. And it is believed that it's different here in Taiwan, in Japan as well, that you really need to send somebody pitching who understands the tech deeply and can talk about it. And because of all the hardware experience, etc., like everybody here, all the investors were, a majority of them were engineers at some point, and they understand it. Whether in United States and in Europe, they tend to be an ex-businessman. Is this because you have experiences from both oceans? Do you think that is true? Like that you should send a tech person here as well, or do you think that that's an untrue stereotype?
I think it's a changing stereotype that nowadays I want to say Taiwan and even Southeast Asia, these emerging countries, the VCs, there are more and more and catching up to the standards of the Western world, and so they do want to evaluate the business. So in some of my work advising startups, I do help them with sort of fundraising preparation, and also we meet VCs. I have a network of investors as well, and at the end of the day, for a VC, they're managing somebody's money. They want to make sure your business, if they're going to invest in you, you're going to make more money for them. So they still really care about the business part of it.
I didn't
nowadays
think that they are not taking care about the business. I think they are. At the same time, from the meetings we had, a lot of people like instantly understand what you're doing, and they want to know like what kind of tech antennas or what are you using. Whether in Europe and the United States, it's very often nice. That's a beeping box, cool beans, but show us your business plan.
Yeah.
But not that they wouldn't be interested in that. What do you think, because you work with local VCs, do you think that because some of them have plenty of governmental money, it's similar to Europe, but let's talk Asia. Do you think that there are difference between them? Those do have just private money, LPs money, and those that have governmental money. Do you see some differences in that, in their approach?
Oh yeah, definitely. You can take Taiwan for example. We have the NDF, National Development Fund, part of the Taiwanese government, and they have programs that can match. Say a VC invests in a startup, and the NDF will come in and match some of the money, and they have very good terms, and you can like buy it back at a cap of 1.5x or something like that. Even VCs, right? VCs, if they're doing fundraising, right? They can also get investments from the National Development Fund. And when VC funds actually get money from them, I think they have to set up an office here at least. They have to have someone here in Taiwan.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, if you take the government, obviously, right? And I think there's maybe some minimum KPI involved, which is just, you probably need to do some events, some PR, things like that.
And from startup perspective, do you think it differs working with a private money VC and governmental money VC?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit, because a VC that took some of the Taiwanese government's money will have sort of that angle of like, hey, we need to have a Taiwan angle, like a help with Taiwan angle. There's a little bit more of that.
Yeah, a little bit more politics, right?
A little more.
Yeah, but I think that there were similar funds in Silicon Valley, similar funds in Israel, similar funds in Estonia. So,
my friends have VC fund here, and they're managing Alibaba's money. Alibaba was China, right? So they have a very specific focus. But the thing is, actually, some of the startups here don't want their money or can't take their money because it's China money.
Because it's China money, but Alibaba money.
Yeah, because the Taiwanese government has to approve of those investments.
Oh, okay. So Taiwan, if you are raising money here in Taiwan, you cannot really have the Taiwanese governmental money and Alibaba money on the same cap table.
Yeah, or any foreign money that comes in. If it's not Taiwanese money, it needs to be checked for potential China money.
And
Yeah,
where
that's
does
part of the-
where does Alibaba invest geographically?
They invest in the whole region.
Yeah.
But the fund here in Taiwan is specifically for Taiwan.
For Taiwan.
Yeah.
I really want to tackle your experiences Rocket Internet because
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a chapter
That's
that
a
I
fun
really
story.
like to hear about. I don't know if you guys listening know the story, but it's a famous venture builder studio that became famous for copying some mainly American startups and building them in Germany, right? Germany was the...
All throughout the world.
And and
Yeah.
it has its own version of Airbnb that was Windu.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but also they're on Uber, Square, Stripe, and others.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you look at your experiences there with some perspective?
So my experience there was a Rocket Internet venture in Taiwan roughly about 10 years ago. I want to say, I think it was a great experience. It was basically, I was there for a year, but that 1 year is probably worth 2 years of experience. Because you're literally just given a bag of money and you say, hey, go build this company in Taiwan. Literally, and I don't care how you build it, just build it and give me the KPIs, meet the numbers. If you don't do well, and if some of you don't do well, then I'll send the new guys in.
So you get a bucket of money and say build this. And so what was the company that you were supposed to build?
So we built Zalora, which I understand right now it should be a public company in Germany, and Zalora is pretty much like Zalando.
Zalando,
yeah. From Europe, they just changed the name in different regions. Like for example, in Australia, it's called The Iconic.
Not Z something. I'm surprised.
Yeah,
Because
it's a little different.
Yeah.
But on top of, I think Zalora and Iconic, it's called the Global Fashion Group. So what Rocket does is they send guys to different countries in Asia, Asia Pac, and they package all of these different countries, teams together. They roll it up into a big group, and then they go fundraise, or they go sell. Right? And that's kind of their game.
And how do they decide what to build? Well, what idea is worth of, kind of copying? What is worth it? How did they decide?
Yeah, so back then, what I do know of is that obviously they look at the successful Western models, right? So like you said, Airbnb, they did food delivery, and Zalora was actually... for us, it was trying to copy Zappos.com from the States. Yeah. And of course, we sort of localized it, and it was less shoes, but we also had clothing and everything else as well. But sort of that customer service aspect we were trying to copy as well.
But do you think that because of this copycat model, do you think that sometimes the team lack the motivation? Like when you have, a common idea and you work hard, day, nights, weekends, vacations, because you have this idea that you want to push through, or the Rocket Internet when, it's an idea, okay, somebody else in the United States had this idea, but it's a really great model, it's successful, let's build it here. Do you sometimes feel like that is, that it's different with working with the teams, for example?
Yeah. So, in terms of motivation, I think it definitely not less. Actually, I think it's quite interesting with the copycat model because it's much more straightforward. It's not like a startup doing a new business model or new product where you're trying to figure out whether you have product market fit, right? And or people want to buy your stuff, your service, right? And you're trying to figure out your business model. Well, the copycat model is that it's a proven business model somewhere else in a large market. So we just need to localize it. And that's kind of fun, actually, because you have a bit more confidence, actually.
Yeah.
Because it's been
proven.
It's
working.
It's working. It's proven somewhere. We just need to prove it here, right? And the challenge is that. How do we prove it here? Taking that. What do we tweak? What do we localize?
It's a very pragmatic approach.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah. But some famous founders like Brian Chesky from Airbnb don't really remember working with Rocket Internet in a good light. He said that they, shamelessly copied everything from Logo Colors website, and almost that he felt like blackmailed to buy Wimdu. Because otherwise they told him, oh wait, we will keep copying you, whatever you do for eternity if you don't buy us. Do you think that this could still work today? Like this?
No, it's not gonna work today. So they've already tried that in the beginning. I think it worked in the beginning, right? I mean, that's how the Samwer brothers started out. In the beginning, they've copied it and then they sold it back to the original business. I think several businesses.
Yeah.
Right?
Not Airbnb, I think they didn't end up buying.
So Brian was smart, and that was their tactic early on. Yep. But yeah, I mean, nowadays, because it's been done for too long and everybody knows about them already and their copycat model, and then there's copycats trying to copycat the copycat model,
Copycats.
Yeah. So pretty much everywhere, and especially Asia. So literally I remember I had friends, startup friends who were running the venture building side for Rocket Internet in Southeast Asia, and he told me that they've decided to stop doing it. So
because it wasn't as successful anymore, or
it's
was it
saturated.
like too long? Saturated.
It's saturated because everybody's doing it. There's entrepreneurs and not non-venture builders, right? That have the same idea. Oh, okay, great. I'm gonna copy stuff too now.
And then speaking of copycats and circling back to the beginning of the discussion and to mainland China, lots of startups are worried because of IP that China might copy their idea execution and just push them out of the business. Do you think that's a relevant fear and that they should be scared of that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you gotta be scared of IP, especially in China, because if you don't have full control of the business in China, there is potential for stealing IP, but also because I want to say the laws in China aren't as solid as the rest of the world, or more how do you say with the Western world, in terms of protection, especially with a foreigner too. You better protect it if you're local. Yeah. But so that's why, I mean, if you look online, a lot of the fake products, right, they're coming from China. Stuff. And nowadays you can literally buy it. I mean, we're talking about, let's say, Lululemon, right? We all know that brand. I mean, you have factories that are producing real, authentic Lululemon stuff. But I'm pretty sure you can go to Taobao and find some of these factories that are selling under a different brand, but they don't call it Lululemon. Literally, it's almost the same thing. It's coming out of the same factory, by the way. And this is pretty much for all brands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like for all fast fashion, for everything, it's coming from the same factories.
It's the same. You can find stuff from the same factory. And the quality's probably not that far off. Maybe there's some, little things that are off, talking about sneakers.
Yeah,
right?
Sneakers,
that's why you need authentication, because when you're selling really expensive sneakers, there's really good factories in China that can copy it.
And where are those very expensive sneakers? Where do they come from? Where are they made?
Where are they made?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's Nike, it's Adidas, these guys.
I mean, geographically.
Geographically, some of them are in China.
Yeah, so China. Yeah.
So these Taiwanese companies are like the top 5, right? They comprise a third of the sneaker manufacturing. So they have factories in China, right? And they have factories in Southeast Asia as well. Yeah, but some of that comes out of China. So
they're copycatting something that that is from China anyway. Speaking to DJI microphones at the same time, how should startup protect itself from such? Do you think patenting, licensing, that it helps eventually, or do China even care if the product or if the startup has some licensed IP? with their potential?
I want to say the protection of the patent and license is not as well protected within China, and that's the thing. You know, as a foreigner, that will be a little tough.
So, is there any suggestion you would take? Like, is it better to try to find a local partner and try to sell to China, or invest in, because it's very costly to invest in like all those patents. It would be applicable worldwide. So, what would be your suggestion to protect one's IP?
One is don't go to China, obviously, because I think depending on how large the company is, right, or how lucrative the China market is for your company, but if you have other places to go, right, for example, Southeast Asia might be easier or more protected rather than go to China.
Yeah,
right? China's a huge market. Unless you really decide to go, then obviously I think if you do decide to go, get all the legal protection you can, but definitely need some local presence. You need some, for example, if you're a German company, find a, I don't know, if you can find a German Chinese person somehow, someone who can be loyal to the German company, but a more local person, Chinese person, I think, sometimes they'll find ways to break off or steal your technology or know-how or something. It's been done. It's been done.
That's a very nightmarish idea. My last two questions are based on your worldwide experience because of studying in the United States, living in Asia. Who has the best food?
What's the best food? Well, I was born in Taiwan. I grew up in Taiwan, and I love Taiwanese food. Yeah, I remember just growing up in LA. I have cravings for Taiwanese food. I don't know have you guys tried smelly tofu yet?
Oh God, no. It smells horrendous.
It smells horrible, right? But
it's my second month here, and I can't do it. Whenever I smell it, I'm like, no. I tasted so many ugly things, and smelly things.
Yeah, that's a bad
Smelly
one.
cheese is okay, but that's too much.
Yeah. So, but interestingly, I think for us, it's more of it reminds us of our childhood.
Smelly tofu.
Yeah. So for us, it's a good smell, and for us.
Smell of childhood, I love it.
Yeah.
So if you love smelly tofu, what is the most ridiculous, most horrible food you've ever had?
Horrible food?
Yes, the worst. And careful, there are turtles. There's a turtle in the office.
Oh boy. I don't know about the worst tasting food, honestly, but I want to say weird food. There was a lot in China.
Yeah.
You're talking about turtles? Yeah. I think I've had some of that in China. I remember eating something. I think it was turtle, and they didn't tell me until I ate it. Oh, by the way, that's some sort of turtle. I was like, sea turtle or something.
Sea turtle.
I was like, oh, why didn't you tell me before? But for certain regions in China, it's normal for them.
We had a business meeting here, and there's a very, very similar term for chicken and also frog.
Yeah.
And we end up on a business meeting in a restaurant. I end up eating frog.
In Taiwan?
In Taiwan.
Okay. There's not that many of them, but.
Yeah, and for some reason, and I couldn't even finish the meeting. I felt so bad because I'm not.
They didn't tell you?
No. They thought it's chicken.
Oh.
They thought it's chicken.
Because it's the same word, I know.
Because it's the same word.
One of the words is the same.
Well, it happened with turtles here in China, but don't eat a turtle in the office.
Yeah, the frogs are also very common in China as well. That's one dish I don't really like as well. Just it's kind of weird. I remember having that. I remember so in China there's some of these sort of wet markets These
Wet markets.
These markets where, you know, they're selling, you know, the
Wet
fish,
stuff.
seafood, and wet stuff. There's a whole barrel of frogs.
Yeah, no,
whole
no,
barrel.
no,
They're just
no.
like in there, and then you're passing by, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
it's really gross.
And for
But there's
some-
other stuff too.
Yeah, there's other stuff. Thank you, Harvey, for being with us today. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this time.